For everybody out there, hi. I am DW Hits. We have with us Jody and Eric, and we are all part of the Bounties, Beasts, and Badlands um, anthology, which came out today. And to celebrate, we decided we'd get together for a few minutes and read just a few little bits of our stories, just to give you guys a taste of what the anthology is like. So before we get started with that, we're going to ask everyone a couple of questions and kind of get to know everybody, and then we will jump on over and listen to some live readings. So Jody, I'm going to drop you out of the stream here for just a minute, so I can quiz Eric, and we'll bring you right back over in just a few minutes. Okay, Eric. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Eric.
I'm a programmer here. Whoa, that was weird. Maybe that'll work.
Yeah, I've turned down my sound. Let me give it a shot again.
Oh, okay. My name's Eric. I live in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I've been a writer for about 8 years now, mostly self-published. Had a couple of books published, and I've got a new one coming out in March of 2022 through Three Furies Press. And I'm currently working on yet another book. I mean, once you start writing, you really can't stop. It's kind of like Pringles that way.
That's true.
That's me. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to bail out early. I've got a Kenpo class coming up here in a little while, and we are going to be working on nunchuck stuff, so that'll be kind of fun.
Oh, that's cool. Okay. So, Eric, tell me, what is your story about?
My story is really about the slow death of the world. Diseases and things that they call angels just slowly tearing humanity apart. And one guy who has just lost his girlfriend to a disease, and he's trying to figure out, can I go to this person that I've been hearing lives out in the woods? She's a witch, and maybe she can help me. And it's really about him meeting her and then realizing that he actually knew her from a previous time. Not exactly the happiest story I've ever written.
Well, it sounds very cool. And what inspired you to write this particular story?
Like any other story, it just kind of popped into my head, and I started writing it down. The primary inspiration really was you asking if I would like to dedicate a story to the anthology. And actually, at the time, I don't think I had anything that was purely Southwestern that would have fit, or the Weird West kind of stuff, which is weird because most of my books are actually set in the Southwest. I mean, that's where I live. So Roadside Attractions is set down in Arizona. Most of the Henchman series is set in and around Albuquerque, with a few jaunts up to Colorado. But yeah, honestly, I hadn't written any short stories in this area, so it was kind of a nice change to sit down and figure out what can I do to kind of enhance the weirdness here.
Very cool. Well, I really enjoyed your story.
Oh, thank you.
So tell us, what else you're currently working on?
I'm currently working on my first science fiction story, actually. And it's a story about a hacker who deletes her brain, and then a thief who wakes up in her body the next day. And he has to figure out why she deleted her mind. And it's all set on an alien space station out in the middle of nowhere, orbiting this weird rock. And it's got aliens and virtual reality and Lovecraftian horrors, and it's actually been an awful lot of fun to work on.
It sounds like a lot of fun. That sounds very cool. I look forward to it.
Yeah. Now I just need to put it all together and make it cohesive.
Well, that's the trick there, isn't it?
It is.
All right. So are you ready to read us a sample of your story?
Yes, I am. I'm just going to go ahead and read the opening section. Mine is the shortest story in the anthology, not because I couldn't come up with anything else, but because I'm really bad at reading instructions. And so while most everybody else was writing novella-length stuff, I said, oh, okay, well, it's a short story. So mine was right around 6,000 words compared to the 14,000, 15,000 I think a lot of other people were putting out. So I do apologize for that. Next time I will actually read the instructions. So my story is called Red, and like I said, it all happens right out here, basically in my backyard. Red sky sunset. Purples and oranges streaking to deep arterial blood red. Gorgeous stuff. The kind of sunset where movie heroines stalked off into the desert, pausing long enough to fist bump a saguaro before disappearing like a late afternoon dust devil. Joke was on the viewers, though. Saguaro don't grow here. Never did. There was only a thin stretch of the Sonora Desert that ran through Arizona and northern Mexico where the things actually grew. Too cold for them here next to the New Mexico Rockies. The other joke was those red sunsets. Pretty, but they meant there was dust in the air. Back in the day, we didn't worry about that. Dust in the air meant the winds were up or the government nuked Nevada again. Not like now. Red sky in the evening meant the dust was up there, as in red lights, the heebie-jeebies, Rescue, Red Menace, Silent Mary, Red Spice, or any of the other names people called it before they fell to their knees, wheezing and tearing at their throats. Considering the irritating tickle at the back of my throat, I estimated I had about 5 or 6 hours left. Barely enough time. And that was if I hustled and didn't have to duck off and hide out while the monsters did their dirty business. Patted the side of my jacket, still there. The single most valuable thing in the planet right next to me right now. Without that, the whole trip was an exercise in getting a door slammed in my face. Sand and tiny rocks crackled under my feet. Trail was probably an overstatement. Once humanity pulled back, Mother Nature surged forward, inexorable, unstoppable. Life in all its spiky, tattered fineries always finds a way. But there was a hint of an old hiking trail left over from when we walked for pleasure without an eye turned skyward. My way was forward, 1 foot after another, endless crunch of gravel and dried twigs, cholla and prickly pear cactus reaching out, hungry for a taste of blood. Even in the best of times, this place was never hospitable to humans. It was the realm of bears and mountain lions, lizards and roadrunners. We were only ever visitors here. We were always better off in our modern caves, safe in our houses with our air conditioners and soft beds. We came for the thrill of nature or getting away from it all. We never lived here, not in the way animals did. She lived here, set up shop and learned to live in a kind of peace with a natural world that thought she looked tasty. Me, I was a walking buffet. Peel off the armor and the canvas and feast away. Crunchy on the outside, chewy on the inside. Veritable meat M&M. The first sign I was nearing her was far from subtle. A leering skull perched on a spiky cholla, bleached and dried by the sun with the faint red tint everyone and everything has when it stays out too long. She didn't bother with a no trespassing sign, just a skull. Cracked jawbone, no teeth. Just enough of a warning to let me know I was closing in on La Zona Peligrosa, the realm of the Bruja. Another 15 minutes of trudging through underbrush that always seemed to be in my way, and that rattlesnake that probably broke a fang on my boots, and a sense of unease flooded me. The kind of feeling you get at 2 a.m. when you're alone and sleepy and you know the shelter is empty, but that shadow just moved, didn't it? Or the light streamed through the windows, bright enough to sear the flesh off the gods. Could be a helicopter, but humans haven't flown in decades. Could be a helicopter. Should be a helicopter. Must be a helicopter even though you can't hear it. It must be a helicopter. Anything else would be weird and dangerous, and there was already enough of that going around. Things that are out of the ordinary are not good, and they tickle that tiny piece of ancient brain that keeps us alive. Her cabin was straight ahead, a modest thing built from scrap wood and held together with rusted nails, bent screws, and dried intestines. From the look of it, the whole thing should have collapsed under its own weight years ago, but it stubbornly held on. The going was rough from there, scorpions and cold mechanical eyes so she could watch from anywhere, black magic wrapped in grimy metal. And there she was, staring out a window with a cold look in her eyes. The last person I expected to be the Wicked Witch of the foothills, but the only person I should have suspected. And I'll go ahead and break there.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Eric.
Oh, anytime. Thank you.
So once again, Eric's story Red is available in our new anthology, Bounties, Beasts, and Badlands. It's available on all of your favorite electronic or web bookstores. We have it in ebook, in paperback, and on hardcover. So you can get more of Eric's story. I believe the link is in the description of the video here.
Cool.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us, Eric.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right. We'll see you in a bit.
Alrighty. Have a good one. I actually probably need to start getting ready for my class here.
Okay. Well, have fun. That sounds like a lot of fun.
It should be a lot of fun.
All right. And I'm now going to bring in Jody into our stream. Jody, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. So, Jody, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm Jody Jensen, and I do a lot of things. I write novel. I have 70 something short stories that I've written and have published. And I work at an elementary school as my day job. So yeah, kind of busy. And I'm also a developmental and content editor for Champagne Books. So I'm usually editing something.
Busy, busy,
So
busy.
yeah. That's
Well,
okay. That's how I
fantastic.
like it, though.
Well, and you must get a lot of fun and a lot of material from your day job too. It sounds like.
I do actually, which you wouldn't know from the short stories I write because they're kind of dark stories, a lot of them. But it's fun to explore that side of things. And my novel is a romance novel, so it's a time travel.
Mm-hmm.
So I do have a softer side too.
That's wonderful. So tell us the name of your story and what your story is about.
My story is called Sheriff of the Dead, and I kind of had been on a zombie kick lately, and I don't know why. I've written several stories about zombies, and when I was invited to take part in the anthology, I thought, well, what can I do with zombies? Because that's what I wanted to write about. So I kind of got the idea to write a story about, from the zombie point of view, about how they're basically kind of persecuted and people just want them dead and don't want them to exist at all because they're dangerous. So I wanted to kind of tell their side of the story. So
Mm-hmm.
I decided to write from the sheriff's point of view about him going to a town called Demise where the zombies that retained a bit of consciousness go there to kind of live a peaceful life, and they stay contained, and he was going to defend this town. So
Well, that's
yeah.
fantastic. I think it's a very interesting twist, hearing the story from a zombie's point of view, and especially in such a detailed world that you built with this.
Yeah, it was fun.
And I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
So, can you tell us what else are you currently working on?
Uh, which thing do you want? I'm one of
Oh,
those people.
you give us a couple of them.
I write several things at once. So I'm working on my next time travel novel, which will be set in, well, it is set in Dawson City during the Klondike Gold Rush. So it's the second one in my series. I'm working on, I just finished a novella length war story that's kind of a dark take on a war story. I mean, they all are dark, I guess, but speculative fiction, I guess, is a better way to say it. And then I have I don't know if it's going to be a novella or a novel yet, but it's a dystopian. And the heroine is the most unlikely. I don't want to give too much away, but we'll say that she's my heroine in this dystopian world is a lunch lady from a school, which is
Very
kind of
cool.
cool. Yeah, it's fun. So,
No, I think that's neat. Get
yeah.
a different glimpse in a different array of characters. That's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, I like to do things. If I mean everything's been done, I guess, but it's fun to try to come up with some new, fresh take on something, and yeah, so
Definitely.
yeah.
All right. Well, we love your story. We'd love to hear a
Thank
little bit
you.
of it. Are you ready to read for us?
Yes. Okay. I am
All
not
right.
starting at the
Fantastic.
beginning. I'm starting in the middle because there was a scene that I really liked a lot, so I'm going to read that one.
That's fantastic.
Okay. Ready? Y'all done lost your ever-loving minds. Dixie scooted past them with a stack of empty plates balanced on a tray. It's like you think I ain't got enough to do already. Now, no one said that, Miss Dixie, Clyde said, trying to soothe her ruffled feathers. He shot Garrett a look that screamed, "Help me." Brushing past his deputy, Garrett took the tray from her. "Let me get that for you." Dixie spun around, placed a hand on her hip, and glared at them both. "If you think I need help, then why are you asking me to do more?" "Because you're the only one who can," Garrett said honestly. "We need you." "It ain't safe out there," she snapped. "I got men keeping watch day and night," Clyde interjected. Her gaze darted back and forth between them before she finally threw her hands up in exasperation. "Fine, but there's some things I'll be needing." "Anything, you name it," Clyde rushed to agree. Garrett stifled a grin and nodded at Dixie. "A horse. I ain't got one." "Done. Will you let me finish?" "Gee willikers," she shook her head. "I know y'all's desperate, but you ain't got to agree till you know what I need." Apologies, Miss Dixie. Please continue, Clyde said, looking properly chastised. Chuckling, Garrett set the loaded tray on the counter and gave the woman his full attention. Like I said, I need a horse with all the trimmings, mind you. I ain't got no saddles or nothing like that. Best get me a burro and a cart, too, so I ain't got to push that heavy wheelbarrow by myself. And last, I'll be needing an armed escort to and from the farm. She eyed Garrett, a hint of a smile playing at the corner of her lips. From you, Sheriff. From me? Garrett raised his eyebrows and gawked at her. Yeah, you, she said. You're the safest one to be with round here, and you ain't exactly ugly, neither. Clyde let out a loud guffaw and slapped Garrett on the shoulder. Christ, man, you ain't even got a nose, but at least you ain't ugly. Garrett joined in the laughter until Dixie scowled at him. He tipped his hat at her. It would be my pleasure to accompany you, Miss Dixie. Now that's more like it. She turned her gaze to the deputy. What do I get in the way of compensation? And not just for feeding the hogs, but for cutting my hours short here, too. I already got a place to live, so I don't need that. Crossing her arms, she waited. Clyde glanced at Garrett, who shrugged, then looked back at Dixie. I don't rightly know. Might be easier if you just tell me what you want. This time, Dixie downright smirked. Leave it to a man to not know what a woman wants. Out with it if you please, Clyde said, looking abashed. Supper with you every night, she stated, her gray gaze fixed on the deputy. Me, but I thought... Thought what? Dixie crossed her arms. You ain't ugly neither, and I ain't decided which one of you I want yet. Clyde's mouth hung open. Garrett laughed and shook his head. She's got us both, looks like. With a cheeky grin, Dixie picked up the tray of dirty dishes and marched off to the kitchen. See you an hour before sundown, Sheriff, she called over her shoulder. And that's it.
Well, that's a lot of fun. I like Dixie's personality and kind of the pluck that she brings to the story.
Yeah, I did too. She was actually one of my favorite characters in that story, which is funny.
She definitely knows what she wants, and she goes for it. That's a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Well, is there anything else you'd like to make sure everyone knows of while we have you on?
I just want to say I'm so honored and happy that I got to be part of this. I have never written a weird Western. I didn't even know what it was. Luckily, I had Crystal talking me through it, kind of telling me things I needed to know. So I'm glad that it worked out, and I'm really happy that I could be part of it. It was a lot of fun. This was probably fantastic. My favorite story that I've written in a really long time. I loved it. This was
that's fantastic. We really enjoyed the story too.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, well, looks like Crystal's not quite ready to jump in yet, so I'll go ahead and go with mine. And I think maybe Crystal will be ready once we do with that. Jody, thank you for joining us here, and thank you for reading for us tonight.
Okay, thank you for having me.
All right, so let's see here. Now, I guess I'm going to answer a couple of my own questions. So, my name is Z.W. Hitz. I'm the editor-in-chief at Fedora Press, and I'm also an author of supernatural thrillers as well as some middle-grade fiction. I like writing for scary stuff, or at least darker stuff for adults, and then I like writing fun speculative fiction for middle graders. So that's kind of a balance I jump back and forth between. My story is called Creeper's Wreath. It's a story about a man who's lost his love and is basically trying to get back to where she was, but at the same time trying to get a little bit of revenge for what had happened to her. And he has been kicked out of this town that he used to call his home. And now he's having to fight his way back in order to get this revenge. So, and what inspired me to write it was a while back, there was a call for dark fantasy in a specific genre. And this was back when Kyanite Press was around, and Crystal knows, and our BK, our other author, knows, and so many of you guys out in the writing community know about Kyanite, and they were a great company. And I wrote this story specifically for an anthology that they were putting together. But then it didn't exactly fit in the anthology that they were doing. And I decided that, it kind of fit. Instead of just being a dark fantasy set in the Wild West, it would lead better to an anthology of Weird West. And I was given some insight by BK and by some others around me, and we kind of came up with the idea of going all out with a Weird West anthology. And that's kind of where we try to build it from the ground up. And I'm really pleased with all the stories that came together to give us this anthology. And I'm really grateful for the authors who came involved, with Jody and Crystal and Eric and BK, who wasn't able to join us tonight. And I'm just really happy to be able to bring this to you. So, and what else am I currently working on? So I have a work in progress right now. It is a kind of meandering, I want to say it's horror, but it's also kind of a dark fantasy set in modern times, where kids kind of accidentally wake a dream demon. And if I was going to describe it to anyone, I would say it's probably something of a cross between Nightmare on Elm Street and It. And there's a lot of overlapping storylines, a lot of ways in which this resurrected demon kind of influences this small town, and really forces these characters to really look out for their own. So without further ado, if my tablet here will cooperate, I'll read you guys a section from Creeper's Wreath. Now, I'm starting here in chapter 2, where our protagonist is on his journey. He's going down the trail, and he's along the way, he's kind of reminiscing about his time when he used to live here, long before all the bad times went out, and thinking about where he is and what he's got to do, but also what brought him here and what his motivations are. Okay, so chapter 2 of Creeper's Wreath. Through the eagerness of his purpose drove Malcolm forward down the road. The lack of sleep persuaded his mind to wander. He found himself reliving the past as if today were 5 years ago. He saw Helen's eyes gleaming in the candlelight. Their hazel depths drew Malcolm in without fail each time the two crossed glances. Her pink lips dazzled his senses and warmed his inside. A patch of freckles hovered at the top of her cheekbones and seemed to dance when she laughed. They sat across from each other at a small round table in the back corner of the saloon. Spent whiskey glasses laid on their sides, rocking back and forth each time Malcolm or Helen moved. "Let's go," Malcolm whispered. "Get on my horse and ride. Never look back." Helen winced and scanned the rest of the room. No one was watching them. "You can't talk like that here. They'll kill you. You're a person, not property. You deserve to live your life, how or wherever you choose." His cheeks twitched with anger as he thought about it, the thought of them barking orders at her. "And that's why I'm paying my debt. Another year, maybe. Another year getting beat up and lying with any man they tell you to. I don't like it, but it's where I am. It's a deal I made. You know, if I leave, they'll hunt me down. They'll send the sheriff after me and bring me back. Don't you remember when Lizzie ran off? How they dragged her back and beat her for the entire day? They made her work for free for a week, and she never recovered." Malcolm's head hung low, his fire deflating. "She died, Malcolm, and they can't blame it on the fever. I know. It was from a broken will." "Then I'll get the money." "Where?" "I don't know. I'll find it." Malcolm's palm slammed against the table. The glass jumped. "Hey!" The bartender, Charlie, shouted from behind her. "Helen, get over here. You got a customer." He smirked at Malcolm. The man took any chance he could to separate the two, and he made no attempt to hide his disgust at Malcolm swooning over a whore. Malcolm's fingers dug into the table and he watched Helen look down and sigh. "This won't be forever," Helen said, and she rose and drifted to the front of the saloon. She took the hand of a dusty miner and led him upstairs. Malcolm clenched his jaw at the memory. His stomach turned and he searched his mind for a better thought. Instead, the call of an angry magpie down from the trees. "Go away," it shouted. "Intruder!" Malcolm chuckled at the absurdity. Clouds hovered over the barrier, shading the mountains and dimming Malcolm's view. As the forest darkened, the magpie squawked and fluttered away. The quiet in the road returned, and Malcolm carried on. About the time he reached the next bend, he remembered the sounds of those gunshots, the one that had changed everything. It had only been a few minutes since Helen escorted the lustful miner up to her room. Malcolm didn't know why he was still there at the whiskey-stained table. Every time she took someone up, the act made his stomach burn and wrench. But this time, instead of taking his thoughts with him and going, he was pondering. Where could he get the money? How could he pay her debt so they could get away clean? He made money as a clerk in the hardware store, but it was only $1.50 a day. It would take him years to pay off her $600 debt. His mind turned to nefarious means, robbery, card sharking. They may pay more, and he'd done such things before settling here. But even those jobs wouldn't score quickly enough to buy her freedom. That was when Eli strolled into the saloon. The skinny dirtbag wore a star, but he was also the mayor and owned each producing gold mine on the mountain. Charlie, seeing Eli coming, ready to glass on the bar and topped it off with whiskey. The mayor grasped the glass without a word or acknowledgement of anyone in the room. He lifted it to his lips, and the report of a 45 long cold echoed from the room above. The mayor tossed back his glass, emptying it into his mouth, and a pair of Derringer pops sounded. Malcolm's heart jumped, and his gaze flew to the stairs. He froze. What should he do? Who fired? Was that Helen's Derringer? A long moment passed. Helen's feet appeared in the stairways. She stumbled down, stepping in spurts of 2 or 3 descending treads, wearing only her white camise and stockings. Blood painted her hands, her shoulder, and her waist. Her face was pale. Her eyes were empty, and as she moved, a line of blood trailed behind her. Oh my God. Malcolm sprang from his seat and tore across the room. He climbed the first 2 steps and caught her as she collapsed. Eli set his glass on the counter and turned, inspecting Helen with a loathsome gaze. God, no, Malcolm whimpered. A bullet wound gushed from Helen's waist. A hole ripped through her body from front to back. The front bubbled over Malcolm's hand while the back ran down the stairs. Doctor, get the doctor. No one moved. Not Charlie, the worthless piece of scum behind the bar, not the 4 large drunken brothers playing cards near the door, not Eli. Eli faced the bartender and scratched his chin. Don't let her leave. Charlie nodded, and as he came around the bar, Eli stepped past Malcolm and Helen and climbed up the stairs. So that's chapter 2 of Creeper's Wreath. Just a little bit of backstory there, but also letting you know what his kind of what he's fighting for and why he's there and what he's trying to achieve. Okay, so it looks like we have Crystal now with us. So I'm going to bring Crystal into the stream. Hey there, Crystal. How are you doing?
I am good. I almost forgot to unmute my mic there, and that would not have worked.
Well, fantastic. We're glad to see you here. So tell us, Crystal, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm from Canada. I think I might be the only Canadian author in this anthology. And I write dark speculative fiction. So it ranges from fantasy to science fiction to sometimes outright horror. And in one case, a dark fantasy romance as well. So other than that, I live with my multitude of dogs, which hopefully will be quiet for this entire thing.
Well, if not, we'll forgive them.
Well, you guys will. I might not.
So can you tell us, Crystal, give us the name of your story and tell us what it's about?
My story is called Freedom's Bounty, and it is about a supernatural bounty hunter who has tracked her latest bounty up into the mining areas of BC in the late 1800s, early 1900s. I can't remember off the top of my head what date I put it out for. I think it was the early 1900s. And her bounty ends up leading to a very difficult choice that has to do with her own freedom from the order that she serves as a bounty hunter. And it's actually one of my favorite things to do, which is to put a almost impossible choice in front of my characters.
Fantastic. Well, we thought it was pretty thrilling. Now, what inspired you to write this particular story?
Oh, my answer is not going to be very enlightening. I wanted to write about a supernatural bounty hunter because I really love Weird West, and I've never read one before, and that was just something I wanted to naturally gravitate towards. I just thought it was such a wonderful and fun idea, and I based it in Canada because I like to bring Canada to all parts of the world whenever possible.
I know the feeling. Not specifically about Canada, but most often my stories take place in where I live. So I want people to know about that, and I can understand that idea.
Your state is freaking gorgeous.
Oh, well, thank you.
Your state is gorgeous. It's one of my favorite ones, and I've been over a lot of the U.S., so.
Thank you. For those viewers who don't know, I live in Montana. So tell us, what else are you currently working on, Crystal?
This feels weird to say, but I've only actually got one work in progress on my desk, which never happens to me, but I've been working really hard to clear my desk from all my projects. And so I'm actually just working on finishing the revisions for Rising Darkness, which is my follow-up novel to one of my latest releases, Falling Light, which was re-released from Dark Brew Press sometime in the last little bit. I've forgotten the exact date, but it is a fairly recent release.
Okay, and for everybody watching, the information for all of our authors is on the Fedowar page. If you look at any of the authors' pages on the Fedowar website, you can see links back to their websites where you can get their other works that they currently have out there. So what are you going to read for us today? Are you going to start in the beginning, or do you need to set us up for something?
I don't need to set you up for it. I'm actually going into chapter 7 of all things, because this is an interaction that is both very critical to the story without giving anything away, and also really gives you a good feel of the two main characters. So I hope you guys all enjoy this, and fingers crossed that, once again, the dogs stay quiet.
All right, well, we're ready for you.
Alrighty, let's do this. For the longest time, she hadn't thought past the next bounty, the next town. Always moving on, searching for the next bit of excitement. Bounty hunting had become the only place she could exert the power she longed for. John's offer was tempting on the surface, but she needed more than another kind of servitude. Hey, Ella, you okay? Kind of looks like your mind's gone wool gathering and ended up with a handful of nettles. She shook her head to clear it. There didn't seem to be one right answer to what plagued her. Either way, she was screwed. In the end, all it came down to was picking her favorite master. I don't know what to do, but I know I want my freedom. I don't understand, he said. I thought you were just here to claim a bounty. Ella took a swig of her cooling coffee and then chucked another knife at the stump, embedding it deeply in the wood. I was, and that was my target. But there was an offer made, a tempting one. She threw another dagger at the wood, waiting for him to say something or ask what the tempting offer was. But there was only silence. She could feel his eyes boring into her, but she had no idea what he was thinking or what assumptions he might be making about that statement. She tossed another knife, not wanting to be the one to break the silence. You know, I don't think my chopping block is gonna be able to stand up to much more of that. You're darn good with those things. Billy chuckled. He stood up and walked over to the log the knives were embedded in and reached for one. Ella chucked another knife, intentionally missing his fingers by less than an inch. He jerked back and whipped towards her. It was the first time she had ever seen anything resembling fear in his eyes. He raised his hands up. Whoa, okay, no touching, I understand. I do poison some of my weapons, and I don't like people touching my things. Ella glared at him. There was a part of her that wanted to take her frustrations out on something, and he was the only target here that wasn't a stump. Message received. Billy smiled at her, and she could feel that emotional soporific sneak into her mind, trying to quell her rage. Stop that! She growled, her fists clenching hard, or I will make you stop. Billy's smile faded, and with it, the calmness that had tried to encroach on her mind. That's fair, but you can't blame a man for being worried that you might let that temper of yours get away from you. After all, I know what you did when you first got here. And if I told you to go jump off a cliff, you think you'd be compelled to listen? Ella asked, though she doubted he was weak enough in mind to be so easily persuaded with only words. Her power, thanks to the order, was severely limited from what it once was. Billy had called what he did parlor tricks, and she wasn't sure she could say her abilities were much more than that. Not sure how well that trick would work on me, but I am sure you have plenty of ways to convince a man to kill himself. He kept his hands in the air as he spoke, whether it was to assure her that he wasn't going to go for the gun at his hip or for another reason. She didn't know or care. It was the fact that he'd had the same thought she'd had that bothered her the most. He knew that there were limits on her abilities. I can try and find out. Ella marched towards him, focusing every last bit of anger into her fist. It coalesced into a white, hot heat pulsing around her hands. Surprisingly, he stood his ground, only widening his stance slightly for a better balance. Your argument isn't with me. His voice was calm, soothing, but the intention of his words brushed over her consciousness with no effect. She saw that worry, but not the fear. Not yet. I have a few ideas of what that thing could have offered to you that might have to do with your freedom. And we're going to stop the scene there because, you all don't need to know what happens till you read the book.
And that's fantastic. We really enjoyed that, Crystal. Thank you.
Awesome.
All right, so I'm going to bring Jody back in so we can all wish everyone tell everyone thank you for joining us. Is there anything else you guys would like to mention, either about the book or about your own specific projects?
If we did that, I'd be here all night. So,
well, I'll just remind everybody then you can get links to everyone's websites and everyone's projects from their author page at Fedora Press. I say that because I don't have everyone's links in the comments here, but I do have a link to the books page on Fedora Press where they can go and see your author page and go to your website. So I encourage everyone to do that. We have fantastic authors in this anthology, and I urge everyone to go and check out the previous works as well.
Can you hear the noise upstairs? It sounds like my ceiling is going to fall. It's the 4-year-old up there playing with the puppies. I have 2 puppies at my house.
There's no better combination than 4-year-olds and puppies.
Yeah. Anyway.
All right, well, fantastic. Thank you both for joining me tonight. I appreciate you coming and reading with us, and I hope everyone out there enjoyed it as well.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much.
All right, everyone out there in YouTube land, have a wonderful night. And I'm going to end the broadcast now.